In today's video, I want to compare Rosetta Stone with Babbel and Duolingo. So my goal here is that if you're trying to learn a language, I'm going to tell you which app is actually best if you want to become fluent in that language. Alright, so first off, let's start with Babbel. Babbel was established in 2008 and it takes a balanced approach by combining various exercises like translation, dictation, and matching tasks, and explicit explanations in the lessons. Like, it actually explains grammar, unlike Duolingo and Rosetta Stone. As we'll see, they don't explain much grammar, if any at all. So a typical lesson in Babbel is going to offer you diverse activities like dialogues, sentence completions, vocabulary flashcards with pretty clear explanations of grammar points and also some cultural insights at times. All right, now I want to talk about the pros and cons of Babbel. So the first thing I would say is that Babbel has a very structured approach, in the sense that Babbel offers a well-structured curriculum with clear explanations, which promotes explicit learning, which is not always the case. There are lots of apps nowadays where you don't have clear instructions. It's just sentences and words and stuff like that. But with this more clear approach, you can actually learn things explicitly, which is beneficial. There is also somewhat of a focus on speaking in Babbel, although there's not a lot of it. So similar to Rosetta Stone, Babbel incorporates speech recognition for pronunciation practice, which is quite nice. And also another pro I would add is that you have some cultural insights. So the app goes beyond language learning. It provides you with interesting cultural tidbits. Now, some of the cons I've been able to observe with Babbel: there is a subscription fee, so it's a paid app, like Rosetta Stone. Unlike Duolingo, Duolingo has an extensive free plan, but Babbel does not have that. So the limited free trial makes it very challenging to fully assess the app's suitability before actually committing and buying a subscription. Also, another thing I would like to mention is that there are fewer languages with Babbel, compared with Duolingo, for example. So you're not going to have a lot of the Asian languages, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. All right, and I want to talk a little bit about the research that's been done on Babbel. So a 2016 study in computers and education found that Babbel was effective in improving speaking and listening skills. All right, now before we move on to the second app, which is Duolingo, I just want to talk very quickly about pricing and sort of do a cost comparison between Babbel, Duolingo, and Rosetta Stone. So now here's something that I want you to remember with the three companies. They very often have discounts. So what I like to do is actually track different discounts that they have for the different websites, and I'm going to put them in the description box down below. So check out the description if you want to find out if either of these three applications have discounts currently. Overall, it's going to be pretty similar between Babbel and Rosetta Stone, anywhere from $8 to about $15 a month, depending on the plan that you choose and the duration that you choose. Duolingo is a little bit different in the sense that there's a free tier, which is pretty extensive, but if you do choose to go with Super Duolingo, I'm going to talk about that later, then it's going to be approximately just similar. Very affordable in general, especially Babbel is pretty affordable if you take a long duration. All right, but let's go back to the review and let's talk about Duolingo. All right, so with Duolingo, a lot of people forget that it's fairly recent. It was born in 2012 and it skyrocketed to fame with a freemium model and a gamified approach. And so it was initially focused on English alone, but it now boasts a vast language selection. So pretty much any language that you want to learn, you're going to find it on Duolingo, unless it's some sort of dialect or some sort of very rare language. So as far as the typical kind of lesson on Duolingo, Duolingo employs micro activities like translating words, completing sentences, and matching pictures. And there's a focus on really building vocabulary and basic grammar through spaced repetition and points based rewards. So in this sense, it's very similar to Babbel. I would say that Babbel has more variety, which is great, and Babbel, remember, has explicit grammar instructions, whereas Duolingo is not going to have any of that. All right, now let's talk about the pros of Duolingo. So the first thing, obviously, is that Duolingo offers a robust free tier, making language learning accessible for everyone. Another thing that I like about Duolingo is that it can be very motivational. And lastly, with Duolingo, you have a variety of languages that you can learn from. So Duolingo offers probably the widest language selection compared to its competitors. Now let me talk about the cons of Duolingo. And the first thing is limited explanations. So Duolingo is going to prioritize practice over explanations, and potentially that is going to hinder implicit learning of grammar. The second con that I really don't like is that you have really repetitive drills. The exercises can be very repetitive, so repetition can aid with memorization, but some users are really going to find the exercises to be quite repetitive after a while. And the third con, is that you're going to have limited speaking practice. So Duolingo is primarily focuses on reading and writing, and it offers limited opportunities for developing speaking fluency. All right, and then lastly, I'm going to talk about Rosetta Stone. So Rosetta Stone is actually probably one of the oldest language learning programs. It's certainly older than Babbel and Duolingo. It was founded in 1992, and it has a longer history to its competitors, and it has sort of a signature method which revolves around immersion, and it presents new vocabulary and grammar solely through images and audio, eliminating the use of native language translation. So you're not going to find any English in Rosetta Stone's lessons. It's going to be just the languages you want to learn plus images and audio. So a typical lesson in Rosetta Stone is going to use different activities like matching pictures to words, completing dialogues, identifying objects, and all of these activities, again, there's not going to be any translation in English. All right, so let's talk about the pros of Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone sort of mimics natural language acquisition. Also, there's a focus on speaking. Rosetta Stone has speech recognition technology, which encourages pronunciation practice as well. And lastly, the curriculum is pretty structured. All right, now let's talk about the cons of Rosetta Stone. First of all, there is a subscription fee, so it's not going to be free, unlike Duolingo. Because there are no translations, it's going to be hard for some people. It can be challenging, especially for beginners. So just relying on images and translations is definitely, I think it's a problem. Now, there is also limited language selection with Rosetta Stone, so you're not going to have as many languages as, with Duolingo. And lastly, I would say that Rosetta Stone, for the most part, it's going to be very, very repetitive. It's always going to be the same thing. I found that, with Babbel, it's also sort of that, drill sequence that you're going to go through, but there's a lot more variety. It's a lot more engaging, whereas with Rosetta Stone, yeah, it gets repetitive pretty fast. All right, so now we've talked about the three applications. Let me give you my verdict. Which app would I use if I had to learn a language from scratch? Now, let me just tell you that I'm not a big fan of Rosetta Stone just because it's very repetitive. I don't like that it doesn't give, translations. Same thing for Duolingo, there's no grammar. Well, there are translations, but there's no grammar. It's pretty annoying as well that you get stuck consistently when you make a certain number of mistakes. My choice personally would be Babbel because I feel like it's more comprehensive, it has more variety, and even if you have to pay for it, it's pretty affordable. It's definitely more affordable than most language learning apps. So that's it for this video. I hope that you liked it. If so, then please leave a comment in the comment section down below and tell me what kind of video you want to see next.